Okay, you guys, what is up? The King of Lightning is here today to do Kill la Kill Episode 9 review. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, before I get started, of course, the series link is in the description box down below on Crunchyroll.com. I know. The guys who live in Europe have problems watching videos on Crunchyroll. You can't do it. Simple Google search will do you justice. Now, that being said, where do I start with this one? Because when it came to the fight, because that's what it really was. It was the fight between Ryuko and Gamagori. And there was a miniature flashback explaining the full, like it actually, fully entails the history between Gamagori era and Satsuki. Also, there was a few scenes with the Mankan Shoku family trying to find a TV. But overall, when it came to the beginning stage of the fight, I thought it was like okay. I thought it was very okay, like very man. Like I'm being very serious because it was the same stuff. It was the shackle regalia, then it was the scourge or the surge regalia, and it was the same tentacle, and they really emphasized like the whips at some point when she was on the ground. It was like he was whipping her thighs, and every time her skirt would go up, and you would see bare ass. I'm not complaining here, but still, like that's what it was. And at one point, even she gets knocked out of the ring, and she winds up hanging by like the cloth of her, like her straps, and this exposes. I mean, her breasts were predominantly exposed anyway, but this exposed even more. And all the dudes are like, yeah! And even Mako had some nosebleed going on here. So, when it came to the beginning of the fight, that's what it really was. It was just like a lot of whips, and then I'll punish myself till I climax. So that was pretty cool to see that he could do it to himself. That sounds kind of weird. It really does sound kind of weird for me to say that. But still, the thing here was that it was just the basic whips. It was the whole, just a slew of whips and her being hit. It didn't really get interesting until the point where she starts to deliberately hit him. And then when she blocks his tentacles or his whips, she starts to twirl the I was gonna say keyblade. No, she twirls the scissor blade around, making like a fan, and then the whips get cut on impact. Then at that point in time, that's when things really start to pick up in the fight, because then he starts doing new stuff. He starts to showcase the true power, and he gets rid of the gag. I'm like, finally, thank you. You look weird as shit with that thing on, but he gets rid of the gag, and then he starts getting like really serious, and then he has like this mold thing, where like he's going to mold her into like the perfect female student. And then he just brings first he has these rings. There we go. First he has these spiked rings. And then he starts to peg them at her. And then it's like a cross counter of cuts and rings and whips. And she winds up losing that cross counter. She gets the rings start to they pretty much kind of like the what was that one move that Gotenks did? Like Galactic Donut. It was kind of like that, and like the rips, the rings, pretty much prevent her from moving, so she can't move. And at that point in time, the scissor blade is outside. It's like over there. She can't reach it. And what she does is that he brings out these two mold things, and he's going to mold her into the perfect female student. And then that's when she's able to break out by reverting into her usual class form. Then he has this massive whip that just comes out of his crotch area, and you're thinking, yeah, of course, he's the black guy. Might as well have some big whip thorn dick, and it fires like a missile. Then Senketsu actually bites on the big whip thorn dick, and then he gets pulled in, and basically it's like her. And she's inside the cloth area of the 3-star Goku uniform that Gamagori had. And when it came to Jakuraize, I think that's her name, and Inumuta, They figured it was over. But no, Sanagayama said something. That's very important to know. Sanagayama said something, and then Kiryu said that was foolish. So those two, they caught her on quick as shit. And then she transforms again, Ryuko. Then her Kami goes into a completely new transformation state. So if Senketsu can do it, then also you can assume that Junketsu can do it as well. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind that Senketsu has been absorbing life fibers constantly from all the battles that she has won Ryuko. Now, granted, maybe because, you know, when it comes to the life fibers, maybe we have Kiryu, and she always fed Junketsu life fibers on the side without telling anyone because the life fibers came to her directly, so the sewing club could make new uniforms. But I doubt that. The main thing here is that she's able to transform her a second time over, and her Kamui gets like Wolverine claws and it gets spikes over its body, Senketsu Senjin, something like that. And then pretty much it's at that point in time game over. And then Gamagori tries to fight back, and no, because his body's exposed now. And then it's the simple Seini Shoshite, and then life fiber, you know, it basically like removes the life fibers from the uniform, and then she absorbs it, she wins the fight. So the fight didn't really get interesting up until that point in time. The rest of the fight at the beginning was like very just meh. It was very, very, very meh. She was clever in the sense that, okay, so I'm not going to attack you first because I've seen what you could do. And I know that you can only attack once you are attacked. But he's like, okay, fine, then I'll attack myself. And then the whole thing with the cloth, how it's first a layer of cloth, and then the real Goku uniform is underneath that layer of cloth. That was cool. But the fight itself, I thought was very, very meh, because it was the same repeated, recycled scenes over and over and over again for a period of time. So that's my take on that. Now, when it comes to how the Elite Four are structured, I like the Elite Four. Lance! I called it. Sanagayama. He's Lance. So after Gamagori's Inumuta, after Inumuta is Jaku Raise. I think that's her name. Jaku Raise, something like that. And then after her is Lance, aka Sanagayama. And then, of course, Green, Gary Oak, Kiryu, and Satsuki over here. And so that was cool to find out. And apparently the pillars are structured in, I mean, like, it was hard to tell at first, given the bird's eye view, but when you see it from Matoi's perspective, it's actually very obvious. Gamagori had beaten less people overall in the selection process. So he had like the lowest pillar. Then it was Inumuta, then it was Jakuraize, then it was Sanagayama. Because Sanagayama actually beat like the most fodder throughout the entire period. So that was cool to see. And when it came to the flashback, a lot of people have been telling me via PM that there is something about Kirin Sati where she has this greater goal. And we actually find out, or we get an idea of what that greater goal is in the flashback, where she states that Honyoji Academy is her army, and how she wants to change the structure of the world for some odd reason. We don't know why. I mean, maybe, again, I have a feeling that it involves her mother and her father. I believe that wholeheartedly. But she wants to change things under her name, Satsuki. And in order to do that, she needs assets. So that's probably the main reason why when it came to killing, when it came to the suicide that Gamagori attempted at the end of the fight, I believe it's called seppuku, something along those lines, where in which she had like the short sword and he was going to stab himself. But she stopped that, because I think that she still needs him later on. Because she says, at that point in time, now is not the time for you to fall to your knees. Something along those lines. But she implies that now is not the time for you to actually, die. Save that for later. Now what the later is, I believe that she's going to try and fight against her mother or father and like take over the world. Because she's building this army of Honyoji Academy for a particular reason. And I believe that Honyoji Academy have other sub schools, they do. They have other subgroups of schools underneath them. But I believe that there's one other school in Japan that they can't control. Another very powerful high school. But how this actually encompasses the world, because right now we're just in Japan. So maybe this may actually progress in other parts of the globe, where like her mother is, or maybe her father is, because it seems like she does have this other purpose, and this may all be just a way of testing Ryuko to see if she's to see if she is ready. There we go, for the greater plan, for the greater mission. And I believe that's that. Whoa, no, I believe that is the case. All right, I'm like on mouthfucker mode, right? So that being said, I did like it. I overall did like it. I thought it was good overall. I'll give it a rating of good. The animation at some points was on point, super on point, especially when it came to like Gamagori when he was talking, and like you could see the detail of his scourge regalia and like the etched out lines, almost like it just looked very nice, very well detailed. The animation overall was good. The pacing is, as usual, super fast paced. But honestly, I thought that it was relatively slower than normal. Even though it's normally like fast paced as all hell, I thought that overall it was slower than normal. And when it came to the overall story progression, the only thing basically, she gained a new transformation, and Gamagori is undefeated. That's it. So, I suppose my overall rating for this week's episode of Kill la Kill is going to be a good. G-O-D. So, I'll leave it at that. King of Lightning. Be sure to, of course, rate, comment, and subscribe as always. Peace. Have a nice day.